It was a rainy Monday morning, the last week of September. I was tired, very tired indeed, because I had been away Friday and Saturday at a training camp with my son Martin's hockey team as an hockey dad, assistant coach and driver of the rented travel bus. We had come home late that previous Saturday evening. Then my wife Catherine had been a nagging bee the whole Sunday and refused me the weekly taste of her both Sunday morning and evening. Not a very good weekend. When I came to work that Monday morning at my job as production engineer at a custom tooling machinery company, Rick, one of my coworkers, took me aside and told me, "Do you know what Catherine did Friday night?" When I called home from the training camp, she told me that she was going to see her mom and then go home to see a film on TV. Did she tell you about the motor hotel? No, why should she? Because I saw her there about 9 o'clock Saturday morning together with some man. I was on my way to the fall membership meeting of the Kawasaki owners and I stopped at the motor hotel's gas station. She and this man came out from a room and after some hugging and a kiss she got into her little red Toyota and drove away. The guy left in a black Mercedes. Are you sure? 100%. Would you recognize that man if you saw him? Yes. Did Catherine recognize you there? No, I had my helmet on. Bad news, but it was no real surprise for me because I had suspected some kind of crap would happen sooner or later since Catherine got promoted and moved to a new department at the insurance company where she worked. I was sure the guy was one Albert Eck, who was her boss at her new job. It was almost a classic cheating at the job story because Catherine had been bragging about this Albert since the first day at the new job. Of course Albert had seen his chances to get the panties off a gorgeous woman, as Catherine really is, especially as Albert's own wife was far from that. However, but Albert's wife was rich and that had probably meant a lot for Albert, at least when he had stood at the bottom of the ladder and wanted to have many expensive things he couldn't afford with his own salary. I'm an average 42 years old guy. My name is Eric Johansson, which happens to be one of the most common names in the country. I used to play hockey in our elite division and had I been only slight better, there had been a future for me in NHL. But now my highest point, as player, had been only one unimportant tournament with our national hockey team when all the best players had invented excuses to been elsewhere. When I met Catherine, she was a real natural beauty, representing our county in the national Miss Pageant competition. I'm sure that it was only my reputation rough hockey star in the popular local team that got Catherine into my bed. Several of us player had a posse of groupies after us and it was never any big deal to get AF from one of our groupies. However, Catherine was a bit different. We remained as a couple and she was a real trophy girl that made other guys envy me when we were out in the evenings. She got ill from her birth control pills at that time and skipped them, which is why we played some kind of roulette each time. Of course, the accident happened after we had been together for almost a year and, as I always been a fair guy, I married her instead of running away as some cowards in the team did. A trophy girl is seldom any perfect wife, but Catherine and I managed to keep our family together without any long-lasting serious quarrels. The price I had to pay was doing much more at home than any of my friends. Our life was okay but never on any heights. Though Catherine looked very sexy when she dressed up, she had never been all that interested in it, but that was my secret, which I didn't tell all those who envied me for my good-looking wife. That rainy Monday Rick promised to help me find out if it was Albert who had spent the night with Catherine, which is why we went to the restaurant at her lunchtime where Catherine and some of her fellow workers used to have their lunch. Our plan was simple: if the guy Rick had seen at the motel was there, Rich would cough and point him out to me. The restaurant was crowded but we saw Catherine sitting at a table for four together with two men and another woman. A few meters from the table Rick coughed and poked at the man sitting next to Catherine. We went to the table. My wife seemed surprised but not at all happy to see me. When I told her, "Hello my darling, I happen to have an errand to this area, why I dropped in to tell you that I might be late home this evening." "Have you lost my phone number?" "Oh no my love, but I can't see your sweet smile in the phone." Then I raised my voice and asked Albert, who was sitting next to her, "You are Albert Eck, aren't you?" I saw that people at the tables around us had begun to listen when he replied, "Yes." I told him with a loud voice, "You are a famous guy today Albert. There are rumors in town that say that some Albert Eck spent Friday night at the motor hotel together with a WH. Poor bastard, that can give you 6 months in jail and some STD as a bonus." Most people at the surrounding tables, hopefully co-workers to Catherine and Albert, had heard what I had said. Albert shouted, "To hell with you," and began to rise up from his chair, probably intending to attack me. Rick pushed him down shouting, "Shut up and remain seated, you damn maggot." To my surprise, both Catherine and the other couple had remained silent, as I said to her, "Enjoy your meal my darling, though you have chosen to have it with some damn bad company." Almost everybody at the restaurant stared at Rick and me when we left the place. At least some of Catherine's fellow workers must have suspected about her affair with Albert and understood why I did what I did. Hopefully others would spread the rumor of Albert and a WH at the motor hotel. I didn't work any overtime. Catherine attacked me as soon as I had closed the door when I got back home and shouted, "What the hell did you do today? Are you insane? Don't you want to hear the truth about that damn creep, or is he some kind of special friend to you? You humiliated me among my fellow workers. Why in the hell did you do that? Because your damn pervert friend enjoyed hearing you say your nasty comments to me. I have begged him to forgive you and he promised to do that if you immediately call him with your apologies and accept his conditions to get even. If you refuse to do that, I'll move out from our house at this very evening. Did you hear what I said?" Yes, I did. I didn't make any attempts to get the phone and Catherine shouted at me, "What the hell are you waiting for? Get the phone and call him." I can't see any reason to do that because I know for sure what said at the restaurant was true. My answer must have surprised her because she remained silent a couple of seconds before she shouted, "Obviously you don't intend to call him. Bad for you, because he is going to sue you and I'm moving out from this house. No problems, I'll help you pack. Are you sure dear Albert has told his wife what he did that night? If that lawsuit ever comes, which I doubt, I'm sure my lawyer will find his WH and use her as witness and get your dear friend Albert to pay for his crime." Catherine began to understand that she had played a high-stakes game with me and was going to lose it. She sounded worried when she asked, "You don't care if I move out?" "No, I don't. You promised to do that if I refuse to call Albert and I expect you to keep your promise." Now she was red as a tomato when she shouted, "You have got Albert on your insane mind." She had never intended to move out but she had too much pride to stay, so she went to the bedroom and began packing. 1 hour later she came out from the bedroom with 2 suitcases. I saw in her red eyes that she had been crying, but why should I care? I was sure she hadn't cried during her night with Albert at the motel and didn't see any reason to be sorry for her facing the consequences. She didn't say a word when she left. Not a word about Martin, who was doing his homeworks together with his friend 3 houses away, so he hadn't seen his mother go. When he returned back home, I explained that his mom would be staying at his grandparents' for some time. He simply asked if we had been arguing, and when I said yes, he only told me that he didn't want to get involved. I promised to keep him out of it. The next day not much happened with my family quarrel. During the day I rang Albert's wife at her job and after introducing myself and explaining that my wife was fellow worker with her husband, I asked her, "Do you know where your husband spent the night between Friday and Saturday last week?" "Of course I know. My husband doesn't have any secrets from me." "Are you saying that you know and accept the fact that Albert spent the night with my wife at the motor hotel in the next town?" "That's bullshit. He was at the Sergel Plaza Hotel in our royal capital because he had been negotiating with an important customer on Friday and then had dinner with the customer and his wife at the evening. I regret to say that you are only partly right. Yes, during the daytime at Friday your husband probably negotiated with the customer, but if he dined with a wife at the evening, it was with my wife and it was without me because I was out of town. It is no longer any secret that Albert and my wife spent the night together at the motor hotel in the next town. I know that for sure because people who have seen them there have told me about their affair." She began to swear. I had never heard a woman swear in such way as she did. She ended our call with shouting to me, "You poor miserable wimp, you can take your damn whore wife and go to the hell." Such was my reward for being a polite truth-teller. At Wednesday Rick and 2 other coworkers invited me out for bowling and beer. Rick's daughter was hired as babysitter for Martin. We had a really good time and got me to forget all my problems with Catherine during the entire evening. To my great surprise 2 policemen dressed in civilian clothes came to my job about 11 o'clock the next day and wanted a private talk with me. They asked me several questions about last evening and I told them that I and 3 fellow workers had spent the evening first with bowling and then with a few beers and even some food at the pub at the bowling hall. Of course, I wanted to know the reason for their questions, but they refused until I demanded that I would call their chief to know the reason. After a while they gave up and told me that Albert Eck had been severely beaten last evening. He had accused me of doing it as revenge because he had my wife. I told them I didn't see him at the bowling hall and how in the hell could I done that beating among all people in a crowded bowling hall. They told me that Albert had been beaten outside his house about 8:30 last evening and asked me if I had any comments as to that. I had, "Find the guy who did it and I'll buy him a bottle of the best whiskey they have at our local alcohol store. I will never pretend to feel sorry for that damn a hole." They even wanted to know how I knew about the cheating and what I'd done about it. I told them the truth that I humiliated Albert at a restaurant and told his wife about his doings. I told them that I suggested Albert's wife as the possible culprit because she had been barking like a mad dog when I had politely told her about what her dear husband had done with my wife. The policeman took my cell phone and left. The information about Albert was certainly news for me because I didn't have the slightest idea who had done it, but it would be a lie to deny that it was good news for me because I felt much better after hearing about how Albert had been beaten. Catherine rang me only a few minutes later and shouted, "What the hell have you done to Albert?" I replied with as friendly a voice as I could, "It would be much better if you, my lovely beloved wife, told me what you have done with Albert." Catherine rang off and I could hardly believe that she for the time being felt herself as my lovely beloved wife. There were many different rumors and gossips circulating at the insurance company and other places in town where Albert had been active. Even Catherine got her share and took a week's vacation, during which she spent 3 days alone at a spa and the remaining time with her parents. After several days, when I got my cell phone back from the police, they told me what had happened to Albert. He was living in an apartment at the town center where he had his parking lot at the backyard. That Wednesday evening a woman had rang his doorbell and said that she had accidentally scratched his car. When he went out to investigate the damage, 2 men with baseball bats had been waiting for him. When they were finished with him, he lay there with his right arm broken, his right knee crushed, 2 broken ribs and damaged testicles. He was expected to remain in the hospital for some time. When Catherine came back from the spa she rang me and wanted us to meet in order to talk, but I replied, "What for? Are you doing errands for your miserable boyfriend again? I don't care a damn shit about his lawyers. Please listen." I interrupted her and shouted, "Tell that silly creep what will happen if he don't stop using you for harassing me. Even I can use a baseball bat if he didn't got enough the last time. Please listen. I have something important to tell you." I didn't care to do that. I cut off her call and didn't bother to take her further calls. The next day the director for personnel administration at the insurance company where Catherine worked rang me at my job and invited me for dinner at a nice restaurant in town. He told me that it would only be a friendly talk off the record about the latest events. I had no reason to pretend to be an ostrich and hide my head in sand, which is why I accepted. I met him that evening and he seemed to be okay. After some polite small talk about sport he told me that though he knew that my wife and I had serious problems, he had no intentions to be any kind of marriage counselor because it was our own business to fix such things. Then he continued by saying that it wasn't any disadvantage for me to know some further details about what he had found out while investigating what had happened to Albert Eck before I decided how to act towards Catherine. I agreed and he continued, "It is very unusual case and in fact it is the first time I have to discuss such matters with somebody outside our company." He went on with, "The police told me that you are out of their interest and our own investigation says the same thing. Do you have any guess about who did it to Eck?" I replied, "If I had, I would reward that man or woman. A simple guess may be that he had even some other wives or girlfriends, or his wife gave him a lesson or hired somebody to do that. Why should I care about that a whole? The only thing I did to him was to start some rumors at the restaurant and I rang his wife about his doings. I got the impression that she is a real bee. I can tell you that the gossip circling around the company caused him serious problems and his wife has already filed for divorce. She apparently would have done it anyway, but I think that your phone call hurried up her decision. The rumors were plain truth. If a married woman agrees to spend a night at a motel with such an a-hole, then she is a you-know-who. No doubt about what kind of woman he there. The problem is that I'm still married to that shabby WH. As I told you, it is not my job to care about what our employees are doing at their free time as long as they don't break any laws of this country. A cheating wife may be regarded as a WH in the public opinion but is not a prostitute in legal terms. If he had spent a night with a prostitute he had been fired for breaking the national laws and company rules. He continued, however, he will be fired anyway for breaking other company rules. Our lawyer is working with that matter and Mr. Eck will never work for us again. Your wife is doing a good job and will be allowed to remain at her present position. As I told you earlier, I don't have any intentions to interfere in your marriage. I admired you as hockey player because you were a good guy and I want to appeal to you to listen to Catherine because she has something very important to tell you." He continued, "Please understand that it is my private request and I'm sure that you will never regret if you'll give her a few minutes to tell you what she wants to say." I promised to do that and we ended the meal with some chat about sport. Catherine rang me the next day and asked if I agreed to meet her at the evening. After my yes, she asked if I allowed her to see me at home or preferred somewhere in town. I told her that home would be okay and promised to fix some kind of dinner. Obviously Catherine had serious problems, probably much worse than a simple cheating, but I didn't know it had any connection to Albert. If I had been told about Albert's celebration dinner before the cheating night, it had been cancelled with much less hullabaloo than now. Albert had possibly been able to save his health, marriage and job. Catherine and I could been able to avoid the now ongoing serious problems. There were many unanswered questions circling in my head during that day, and I began to look forward to see Catherine and perhaps get her to give me some answers. Though doing my best to avoid thinking about it, I couldn't deny that I had missed her while she had been away from home. I fixed a simple dinner with 3 frozen microwave meals from the supermarket, shifted them to real plates, and added some extra vegetables so it at least looked good. Martin was very happy when I told him Catherine was coming home, and when she rang the doorbell he opened the door shouting, "Come in, Mom. I've missed you so much." She was a very pretty woman, indeed, though that evening she was almost without any makeup. She and I greeted with a "hi," and I asked her to sit down in our small dining room. I had opened a bottle of wine and offered her to stay overnight in the guest room if she preferred wine to the meal. She accepted. Martin and Catherine had a lot to talk about, so I let them do that during the meal. A few hours later, when Martin was sleeping in his bed, Catherine and I sat down in the living room and Catherine began speaking. "I'm sorry for everything, I regret everything, and I have a terrible remorse for all crap I done to my family. You don't need to say that I'm a damn silly bee, because I already know that. It is now when I probably lost you that I have found out how much I really love you and how much my family has really meant to me. I don't dare ask you to forgive me, at least not before you heard me tell about my part in the mess I created. I promise to tell the truth and not try to use any excuses." It was a quite different Catherine compared to the bee I met with Albert at the restaurant and who left our home after work that Monday. Even I intended to be honest to her and began with asking her, "How long has your affair with Albert lasted?" "One night. That night at the motor hotel, and I don't know what to call it because the main part of it wasn't really an affair between lovers. But he F you several times during the night." "Not several times, we did it twice." "Why did you F him if it wasn't an affair?" "Because I owed him many thanks for getting my new job. That night after we had a great celebration dinner, I felt that it was the only way I could reward him for everything he had done to me without any demands for compensation. It's not any excuse that I was a little tipsy, because I think it could happen even in sober condition. Giving him some gift could be misunderstood by others and mean serious problems for both of us. That night was a perfect night for our so-called affair. Of course, I can't deny that I had admired him in several ways for some time, and even more since he fixed me that job, because I really wanted it for to be respected for doing a good job and show everybody that I wasn't only that stupid blonde some people regarded me to be. "So Albert offered you a new job and told you the price for getting it?" "No, he told me what the job was about and that I had the right qualifications. Albert asked me to apply for it and no other conditions were ever mentioned. I did what he suggested me to do to be well prepared for the interview, and I got a very pleasant surprise when the job was mine in a hard competition. It was a real promotion and heavy rise of my salary, which I regarded as great advantage for the whole family. Of course, my promotion created gossip about Albert and me, which is why he always treated me very correctly at the office. You bragged very much about him, almost a classic beginning of an office F affair." "Yes, he really convinced me that he was the good guy, and I can't deny I liked him then." I saw her straight in the eyes and replied, "I noted that because your behavior in the bed turned from lovemaking to giving me you now and then. Even I began dreaming about some greener grass on the other side of the fence. Oh my God, that was never my intention to neglect you for any reason. The new job had me tired because I had so many new matters to learn." "Did Albert demand that you meet him at the motor hotel?" "No, not really. We had talked about celebrating my promotion with our spouses, but his wife refused to do that. Albert knew that Martin and you were away at the hockey training and told me that now we had a great opportunity to do the celebration. He was expected to be home from a business trip at Saturday but could be back already on Friday evening, why he invited me for that celebration dinner then, which I accepted." Catherine continued, "I met him at the motor hotel, and after a drink we took a taxi to a nice restaurant in the nearby town. We had a pleasant long dinner with 2 bottles of an expensive wine, why I couldn't drive home after that. I was slight tipsy and in good mood, why I can't deny that it must been an easy game for him when he seduced me later in the evening when we were back at the motor hotel. He was gentle and tender during the first F. When I began to feel remorse afterwards for what I'd done, he comforted me and persuaded me to go for it again." "What did you do?" "S him hard again." "More hot love?" "Hardly any love the second time because I felt remorse for what I did." "He used you again?" "Not really. We had it, that time more roughly than tender, and I felt like the S I really was. Afterwards we agreed that this was the last time we would ever do this. He never demanded anything or forced me to do anything. Don't blame him, blame me, because nobody forced me to go there, or I could say, no, but I didn't. The fault is mine. You refused to have it with me when I was back home from Martin's hockey training." "Yes, I did, because I felt so dirty and ashamed about my cheating. Though I took several showers, I still felt dirty. I felt just like the shameless whore that I am in your opinion." What about Albert and you when you met at the job on Monday? Was he still the dream prince even after he had got you off, or did he treat you as the office WH you really were? He acted just as usual. Neither of us mentioned anything about what had happened. Why was he fired from his job? Because when he was at the hospital, people from the personnel department were looking for some document at his office and found kinky pictures of one of the young secretary in one of his drawers. She had made some serious error and Albert let her choose between an afternoon at a hotel or to be fired. I was surprised when hearing that because he never demanded nor blackmailed me in any way. At a closer investigation about Albert's office even showed evidence about some economic crimes was a surprise for me. Nice lover boy, indeed. I have promised to be honest to you and have to confess that I felt something for Albert during our romantic celebration dinner. He was nice to me and didn't demand anything. But now you were a prey in his web and you can be sure that he had some plans for you in the future. Probably kinky plans, because he did such things with that poor secretary. Catherine began sobbing and said, I thank the good Lord that you found it out and could stop it in time. I asked her, he wasn't happy to see me at the lunch. What happened after I had left? Your action got him totally mad. He had regarded you to be a spineless wimp because you accepted me to be that lazy spoiled bee I was at home. He had never expected you to make a laughing stock of him among all those coworkers. Then he wanted me to help him stop the rumors and have you phone him with your apologies or you would be sued for a large amount. It was Albert who suggested me to move out for a few days if you refused his conditions to get even with him. What Albert told you was more important than what I said when we met at home after work? No, not really. The main reason for me to move out for a while was that I wanted to avoid all arguing with you and show Albert that I wanted help him stop the rumors at the job. Then Albert got severely beaten and the police found out the whole story about my cheating with him, and hadn't you obviously already known about it, the police had told you. When did you know for sure that I knew you were the Motel WH? I suspected something when you wanted me to move out and offered help me pack my things. When did you know? Monday morning, people had seen Albert and you leaving the motel room together and kissing while standing at your cars. Oh God Lord. That explains your verbal attack on Albert at the lunch and why you called his wife on Tuesday. Why didn't you accuse me at the lunch? I said, I was curious about what you would do. Why didn't you accuse me at home when I demanded you to call him? Why not? Because I was waiting for your confession, which never came, though you must suspected me to know something further than I said at the restaurant. I'm not surprised because now I know that F around with married bosses seems to be okay at your job. Nobody can stop adults from having voluntary thing on their free time. Of course there cannot be any demands or conditions about it which are allowed for gaining advantages at the job. What Albert and I did could only be regarded as a simple affair because there were no conditions about my job involved. She continued, not telling you about his invitation to the celebration dinner is the worst mistake I have ever done in my whole life. If you had known about it, I'm sure I had gone home in a taxi and nothing had happened afterwards. I'm ashamed but have to confess that the simple reason is that I wasn't totally uninterested of Albert. You tried to hide it from me even afterwards, though you ought to known that you had a very weak position to deny him anything if he would demand you to give him thing in the future. There were many rumors about Albert and me circling at the job, which I couldn't stop, why I went to the personnel administration director and told him the truth about Albert and me. His investigation found out that I had got the job based upon fair records and there had never been neither any demands nor any promises about thing when I got the job. Our personnel director told me that I had done a good job in my new position. As a personal favor he promised to talk with you. So even he told you that F around is okay at your job? No, of course not. He told me that though my thing with Albert could only be regarded as a stupid party affair and it was my private problem, but he was surprised about my foolishness to risk a happy marriage for some drunken thing. You have never accused Albert for doing anything wrong, have you? Do you still love him? No, and I never did. The truth is that I admired and looked up to him for his kind help and because he never demanded or forced me to do what I did. I have to be honest and confess that it was my own fault that I made my terrible mistake and I will regret it the rest of my life. What Albert did with that poor secretary and his stealing from the company has now turned my opinion about him to that of a disgusting creep. I asked her, how are you doing at the job nowadays? Working hard and doing a good job is my only chance to be respected at the job again. I can only hope that there will be a chance for me even at home to show that my acting as an easy seduced was a one-time mistake, which will never happen again. I've spent many sleepless nights thinking about what a damn spoiled bee I've been at home. I'm ashamed about that too, and if you will give me a second chance, I promise to be a quite different wife. Please give us a chance to save our family, please. I was both surprised and convinced that she had told me the truth, which is why I told her, please understand that even now my mind is a terrible mess. I haven't filed for divorce, but honestly I don't know what to say or do. Certainly, I have been thinking a lot during my sleepless nights. One thing is for sure, I have no need for any lazy spoiled bee or some kind of submissive maid who is whining all time about how sorry she is. I want to share my life with an equal woman who takes her part of all ongoing matters in the family and home. Catherine began to cry and sobbed, "I love you and Martin with all my heart. My only dream is to have a happy family again. I promise to work hard and do my very best if you will give me a second chance to fulfill my dream. Please tell me that dream come true?" I was surprised, very much surprised, indeed. Not about the promises to be some kind of a new wife, which I suspected to be meaningless mumbo-jumbo, but that her new attitude might mean that she must love me very much. Catherine was still a very beautiful middle-class woman with a good job and would hardly have any problems at all to catch an upper-class guy who wanted a handsome trophy wife. But she didn't want it to be a rich man's spoiled trophy wife. She wanted me, only me, to take her back. I followed my heart and said in a low voice, "Yes, I want to give our marriage a try if it is still possible. Is there more you want to tell me, because I got an impression that you want to tell me about some other important matter regarding us?" She remained serious and whispered, "I'm pregnant." "Are you sure?" "Yes, I am 100% sure that you are the father. Though I didn't know anything about it then, I must have been pregnant more than a month when I had my affair with Albert. However, I do not ever want you to have any doubts about being the father, which is why I promised to have both Martin and the baby DNA tested." "How long have you known about the pregnancy?" Catherine began to cry and sobbed, "A few days, but you refused to take my calls when I wanted to tell you about it." Now I hugged and kissed her for a long time before I said, "I love you very much because you didn't use the child for saving our marriage. I really want to be a father again. Very much, indeed, and really hope that you want to have the baby." She continued sobbing when she said, "Yes, I do, and I'm very happy for both the child and for getting into the family again. I have had nightmares about being dumped." I told Catherine that I've neither signed any divorce papers nor contacted any lawyer in that matter, which is why this evening would be a real new beginning for us. I had always loved her and had until now accepted her just as she was. To be honest with myself, I had to confess that though she had made a serious mistake and I've been both terribly angry and sad about that, I still loved her with all my heart. Even the new baby should need both parents, and I was sure that I was the father because the conception must have been during the weeks she was out of the pills due to some medical tests for new pills. That night Catherine and I had the most intense thing we ever had during our marriage. Of course, the public opinion says that a cheating bee ought to be immediately kicked out, and I'm sure that nobody had ever heard any different expression from me. So, if I didn't dump Catherine, I would probably be regarded as a poor wimp, at least for the time being, among some people who don't know Catherine and me very well. Well, why should I care what those for me completely unknown people thought about me? I asked myself if it really could be a clever decision that Catherine's few hours of drunken stupidity would be allowed to be a valid reason for destroying many years of happiness for all four of us in our family. The really sane reply to that question could only be a no, and I was sure that our relatives and real friends would understand and support Catherine and me when we saved our marriage. What else could I say? Catherine was a very beautiful wife with several advantages, although she had been a lazy spoiled bee in many ways. Though what she had been and done, I couldn't deny that we had shared many happy moments during our marriage, and she had always been a good mother to Martin. I was sure that our new baby would have the great advantage of her being the same very good mother. Catherine was honest with everything she said during that evening when we agreed to give our marriage a new chance. She has turned out to be a new wife who takes part in most matters at home and seems to like it. Catherine is now involved among the supporting moms at the hockey club and has gotten to be very popular there, though she denied all involvement when the insurance company, where she works, signed a 3-year sponsoring contract with an annual huge amount to the club's junior section. Even our personal life has reached new unexpected heights and is better than ever. For the time being she is giving me great you-know-what now when her belly is getting to be huge. All three of us in the family are looking forward to our new baby. Albert is just a fading bad memory, and has only been mentioned a few times when we were told about where he is living after his divorce, and what he is doing to make a living for the time being. I still don't know who gave him, or organized the beating that sent him to the hospital. My guess is that his wife hired somebody to do that, but the only thing I know for sure is that I wasn't involved, and why should I care about him? Sometimes I ask myself if it even was my fault that Catherine and I didn't find our new happiness a long time ago, or if it really was necessary to have a serious crisis to understand our love for each other and take care of the great possibilities we really had in our family.